Hey everybody! The big patch hit, and with it came a lot of changes to PvP and World versus World, well, mostly PvP. And also with it came ranked arenas for 2v2 matches, which are incredibly fun. I really like doing the 2v2 matches. And I've been using a build for it that I kind of want to share with you guys today. It is just a bit of an alteration to that Warclaw boost bed build I made a while back, and it's pretty incredible how well it works in 2v2s. So I'll get into it. I'm gonna just go over the build real quick, and then I'm going to give you guys the way to use it, because that's kind of the most important part of the build. If you just go into a game with this build and not know how to use it, you're gonna probably die pretty easily. But the way to use it is really what makes this build good. All right, so I went through a few iterations of this, and so I've been solo queuing basically the entire time I've been doing 2v2s, and so I wanted a build that would be able to carry me, because, you know, I'm not the best player in the world, so I needed a build that would carry me and my mistakes, and hopefully carry the match, because as a solo person going in 2v2s, you have, you know, a 50% chance of getting someone better than you and a 50% chance of getting someone worse than you. So you need to be able to deal with the fact that somebody is worse than you on your team and still be able to win games. And it seems to be working because I have like a, I don't know, 70% win rate or something like that. So I am going to tell you what makes this build good. All right, so we go to the PvP build section, and I think we're just going to go straight to the builds themselves. It's a Weaver, so you obviously take your Weaver trait line, and what this does is you basically go as tanky as possible as a Weaver with the setup, and then all of your damage will be coming through Condis and burns that you could put out at the same time as being really tanky. So you go Weaver, you take your Grandmaster trait Woven Stride that says anytime you get swiftness or super speed, you get regeneration, and also when you're inflicted by inhibiting conditions, you get swiftness. So what this means is you get regeneration a lot and you get some swiftness a lot. And the combo for this is, in water, you have Cleansing Water that says whenever you grant regeneration to an ally, you remove a condition from them. So, obviously these together, every time you get regeneration, swiftness, or super speed, you remove a condition from yourself. And then this, okay, so this is the only trait that I'm not quite sure about. Lesser Stone Resonance, they nerfed it in the patch. It used to be, it didn't grant extra barrier. It used to be that stances gave you stability. It no longer has the stability, so it's a lot less good than it was before. But they didn't, to a lot of like passive traits like this that trigger when you're at a certain health threshold or when you're stunned or something, they really increased the internal cooldown. This one's still not so bad. It's only 70 seconds internal cooldown, while some of the better traits are 300-second cooldown, and I kind of don't want to take those. But this one is still possible to take. If you didn't take this, though, you could switch it for Swift Revenge, which gives you swiftness whenever you use a dual attack, so your third attack in Weaver on any of the attunements. Now, that obviously, when you get swiftness, you remove another condition, so that's, you know, a nice little bonus. The reason I take Lesser Stone Resonance or Bolstered Elements is because, yeah, it's nice when you're at 50% to get 5,500 barrier or 6,000 barrier, essentially. It's a nice little survivability thing. And then finally, Elemental Pursuit as your minor, which every 10 seconds you get super speed when you use inflict an inhibiting condition on an enemy, which you're going to be doing pretty often because you got Cripple on a lot of skills and Chill on a lot of other things. So that's more condition removal. If you feel squishy and feel like you're not getting enough conditions to make this worthwhile, even though I really recommend this, you could go Master's Fortitude, which gives you a lot of vitality because you have power and condition damage in your build. Or, you know, you could even go Superior Elements because weakness is a very, very strong thing to put on people, and it increases your critical chance by 15%. So you could go with any of these, really. This is tanky, and damagey. But the rest of it is kind of, I feel like you kind of need to go this way in my for my build anyway. Like I said, with water, you have the cleansing water for that combo. Then flow like water, which is kind of nice when you're above 75% health. You deal more damage. And whenever you block or evade an attack, which you're hopefully doing quite often because you want to be evading all the damage dealt to you, you heal yourself. And so that's very nice. An alternate for this is you could go Cleansing Wave, which is you remove conditions from nearby allies when attuning to water. But, you know, you don't attune to water too often with this build. So maybe Flow Like Water is the way to go. Then, finally, I do stop, drop, and roll. So we were just talking about evading. This removes burning and chilled whenever you evade on a 10-second cooldown. Very strong because the Condi damage that comes in from a lot of builds these days is burning. And burning happens really fast, stacks quickly, and can deal a lot of damage really quickly. So it's really nice to, on an evade, just remove like 7-8 stacks of burning. Then we got the Earth line. Our final line. Obviously, you can see this is very tanky, right? Earth, Water, and Weaver. Earth line, the most important thing here is Stoneheart. You cannot be critically hit while attuned to Earth. So, you know how all the CC skills got to pass over and they deal almost no damage. All other skills got to really attune down, so almost all skills do a lot less damage than they used to in the past, power damage. So if on top of that, you're making sure that nobody could ever crit you, you're going to be nigh unkillable to anything but a lot of Condis in a 2v2. So if you're playing properly, that is. So that's why pretty much the rest of the build is all about removing Condis from you. Because with Stoneheart, you feel nigh unkillable, and then you remove all the Condis from you as much as possible, which makes you very unkillable. When you're in Earth Attunement. So then next you got Earth and Blessing to remove conditions quickly from you as well. This one reduces the duration of Chilled, Cripple, and Immobilize. So what that does obviously is it means that when you do remove conditions, you're less likely to have the movement impairing ones, the less damagey ones on you because their duration is decreased. So you might remove more damaging ones instead, which is very, high value. Also, it gives you endurance every time you get one of these conditions applied to you. So more dodges. Great. Then, finally, this one's another trait that I'm not entirely sure about. I have Serrated Stones just for a bleeding duration increase. It is not very high value, especially the 5% damage increase, also not very high value. You could probably switch this to Elemental Shielding. Every time you give an aura to you or your allies, you get protection. That means your Fire Shield right there. It gives you Fire Aura. You get protection. You do Leap sometimes. You could do through some Fire Fields or some other fields. That'll give you other auras. Yeah, Elemental Shielding is a good idea. You're not going to have that protection from that often, but you never know. It might be very important in some situations. Then there's Armor of Earth, Earth's Embrace. I would suggest it sometimes, but I just can't these days because of that 300-second cooldown. You'd get it once in a match. It would probably save your life sometimes. So maybe you want to take it, you know, and in a 2v2 maybe also, because at 300 seconds really doesn't matter when the game is only 3 minutes. So maybe you want to take that. I don't know, though. I just looking at that 300-second cooldown, I'm always just like, avoid. But, you know, it's very strong compared to some of these other ones right now with this build. Anyway, that's the traits. Moving on to the equipment. We've got Sage Amulet. So that's power, vitality, healing power, and condition damage. High condition damage, a little bit of healing power, a little bit of vitality to bring you up to 1700, 1800. And the power is pretty decent too, so that you're not all into one category. And then you go sword, focus. If you feel more comfortable playing some other offhand, you can, but sword pretty necessary. Thing about focus though is so I'm just going to tell you all the rotations for focus in this video, and I'm not quite sure how well dagger would work. It'll probably work too, but sword focus is the way we're going today. And then for sigils, you would need Smoldering Sigil to increase those burn durations. Smoldering Sigil is still, the specific condition duration sigils are still pretty high value since it's 25%, and an entire rune set only gives you 20% now. So definitely take a Smoldering Sigil. And then I have Sigil of Purging just for more condition removal to be more tanky. But you might also go like Stagnation instead, or as well as, because with that, you swap to this weapon. When you swap to the weapon in combat, you immobilize, you cripple people around you, which would trigger the remove a condition thing on cripple. But that's only on a 10-second cooldown, so you're going to be doing that more often anyway. And then for the rune, for a while I was using Rune of Balthazar for that extra 20% burn duration and 10% maximum health, so that gives you like nearly 20k health. But I've recently been using of the Mirage, go back down to that, and it's been serving me pretty well. So you still get all that condition damage, a little extra toughness compared to the Balthazar one, which is nice, so a little more tanky. And then on top of that, you inflict Torment for 4 seconds on 1 second cooldown whenever you successfully evade an attack. And that is pretty great, because it's not only is it extra damage, an extra condition, but it's also a cover condition for your burns or your bleeds. So that's the build, and I guess I'll show you a little bit how it works. Oh wait, first I'm going to tell you about the utility skills and heal skills. Again, this is up to your flavor. I am using this heal skill. You probably don't want to use it because there are better ones out there, but I like Aquatic Stance because... So here, this is what happens in a 2v2. The other team decides to target one of the players that's coming at them. Generally, when it comes to... when you're playing this build, they will target you. They might target you for a little while and then decide, you know what? This is stupid, let's stop targeting this person. Let's target the other person because they don't have Stoneheart. Because you are very tanky. Usually you want to kill one person really quickly. And so that means that if you're using like Sign of Restoration, you're less likely to be able to heal through being targeted, right? So like if you're being double targeted by somebody, your health might go down quite a bit. And people will realize, okay, if I keep pressuring this person enough and enough and enough and enough and enough, they might go down. Sign of Restoration will only be healing you 200 per cast, so it's only going up at a certain fixed rate. But if you have Aquatic Stance, when you get it off, it's 3,000 off the bat and then 700 each hit after that for you and your allies. So you could like spike back up really quickly and demoralize your opponent essentially and make them not target you anymore. So I always feel like a thing like Aquatic Stance, or really any of these other heal skills, is better than Signet of Restoration for a 2v2 match, because you're more likely to be able to go against, focused bursts against you. So that's my reasoning for Aquatic Stance. You might have different reasoning, that's fine. Then I have Signet of Fire, just because 4 stacks of burning on a 15-second cooldown to multiple targets is pretty damn strong. And it's just like a lot of DPS. Then I have Primordial Stance, because it's also... so since you're sticking in Earth so much with this build because of Stoneheart, a lot of your damage is going to have to come from your utility skills and your elite skill, rather than defensive things from your utilities and your elite skills. So yeah, you get your damage here, your damage here, and this is the one thing I would say is questionable. I use Stone Resonance. Again, this is another thing to counter pressure on you. If people are deciding to target you at the beginning of the game or sometime in the game, Stone Resonance is great to discourage them, because they just hit you or try to hit you, and you are just putting up barrier and never taking any damage. So it's a nice demoralization tactic. Also, the stability is quite good for stomps and getting off your heal skill. But other options for that is, this is not as good anymore, Twist of Fate, because it's a 75-second cooldown. It's always been good. This has no stun breaks, so you might feel very sad about that. I don't know if it really needs stun breaks because you could just face tank most things. But yeah, Twisted Fate's still pretty decent, even though the account recharge is really high. Glyph of Elemental Power is pretty decent. It's a stun break, and also it could be used to give yourself extra damage. A lot of people have been swearing by Armor of Earth these days as a nice stun break with a ton of stability and protection. And I don't know, you might want to Conjure, because if you're in Earth Attunement a lot and you're not being pressured too often, you'll run out of your cooldowns here, and then you might want just a full another set of cooldowns to do a lot of damage. Besides that, you know what? You have a lot of options. You'll come up with something, I'm sure. And then finally, for the elite skill, very much for the same reason that I said is not the worst idea to replace Stone Resonance for a Conjure skill, I'm using Conjure Fiery Greatsword as the elite. And I know a lot of people love Tornado these days because it is very strong, but it's a lot less strong without Lightning Rod, and this what's going on in this build. So Conjure Fiery Greatsword does a little damage when it lands, gives you a lot of power and condition damage, and then also it just randomly puts down these eruptions underneath random targets every 6 seconds, I think it is, which could do 6 stacks of burning and like 7,000 damage essentially. And then on top of that, obviously you have all the skills. So let's see. Yeah, so there you go. There's a fire eruption. It's just doing a ton of burning on him already. And you could do your own fire eruption on top of that. That's on a 5-second cooldown. The range on the auto attacks is pretty nice. So it's just like a lot of damage. You got this huge 1.5 second evade on a 5-second cooldown with a combo field finisher whirl, which is just great to kite or catch up to people or get around the map. Again, nice kiter, and also a nice gap closer is the Fiery Rush. And then the last one is nice to put down on bodies. It's a big basically a tiny meteor storm. Yeah, so I would just like to say Conjure Fire Greatsword, fantastic in 2v2s for me, for this build, because you got a lot of extra damage from it. You could stay in Earth Attunement, not get hurt, and just lay waste with your Fire Greatsword. And your friend gets one too. So it lasts 30 seconds, but then since your friend, so you could pick up the other one before this one ends so that you both have it. So that you could double the duration of the Fire Greatsword. You could have it for 60 seconds. Also, you could just drop one for your friend for extra damage boost. I love it. I love Conjure Fiery Greatsword. So yeah, that's everything about the build except for how to use it. And the way to use it is as follows. You stay in primary Earth Attunement, and you want to, most of the time, stay in secondary Fire Attunement, because that's where a lot of damage comes from. You can still be doing a ton of damage with these last 3 skills if you're in Earth Attunement, because burns do a lot of damage. And also, that means your primordial stance is burning and bleeding, which again is just a lot of damage. That's 2 stacks of bleeding and 1 stack of burning every second to everything around you. And then, yeah, you got Sing and Fire as well. So here we go. I could just show you kind of how tanky it is. Just get everybody on here. Just do a lot of damage at the same time. Easy peasy. Just kind of laying waste to them as I don't even dodge and kill everybody. Very nice, right? Pretty nice. But you don't want to stay in Earth Attunement, Fire Attunement the entire match, because you're not getting full value of this build if you do that. First of all, they will eventually wear you down if that's all you do with this build, because you will run out of cooldowns eventually, unless you're, the master kiter, master dodger, I suppose. But there's a lot of other options you could do. So let's get into it. Let's say you have way more Condis than your passive Condi removal can take care of by, inflicting some conditions, putting regeneration and swiftness on yourself, etc. Well, then you probably want to switch into Water Attunement. When you switch into Water Attunement, first of all, I think it does a cleansing wave, if I'm not mistaken. I might be mistaken. Let's find out. Healing wave. Fine. find it as a healing wave, but it also gives you Riptide, which is a nice evade backwards. It gives you healing and regeneration and puts down a water field. And what you could also do in a water field is use your magnetic wave, which is a blast finisher, which heals you again. And not only that, it also removes some 3 conditions. It's very weird that this skill does not show the 3 condition removal on the tooltip. It only says it in the description. Oh well. So yeah, you could use Riptide and your area healing while doing the Riptide with your magnetic wave. Now you are also protected, because when you get out of Earth Attunement, it's a very scary moment because now you could be crit. So luckily, Riptide evades, and then with Magnetic Wave on, you have another 3 seconds of reflection duration. So as long as you're not in melee range, probably the things that people are doing to you are projectiles maybe, so you could reflect them back to them and you're protected that way. Now, you don't want to go right back to Earth Attunement probably, because if you do that, then you have Earth Water and you're not going to be doing a lot of damage in Earth Water. Instead, let's go back to this. Instead, you probably either want to go back, to Fire Attunement and then back to Earth Attunement. So again, you're unprotected in Fire Attunement, so what do you do before going into Fire Attunement? Well, you use Obsidian Flesh. So right before switching to Fire Attunement, you go Obsidian Flesh, Fire Attunement, and now that Obsidian Flesh locks you out of skills, you wait a little bit, run around a little bit, and then you have a 1-second window of unprotection before going back into Earth Attunement that you probably use Flame Uprising and these 2 skills as well, just to do a little damage and a little interrupt. Then you're back in Fire Attunement and you're safe again. Safe at last. So that is what you do to clear conditions and have some protection. Now, if you're not being targeted, so your skills are on cooldown, you're not doing a lot of damage anymore because you're stuck in this attunement, but you're not being pressured. So what you do is you go Lightning Attunement, Air Attunement I should say, and no real damaging skills here, but what you do have is 2 interrupts. You go Polaric Leap to gap close and interrupt them, and then you do Gale Strike to interrupt them again for a good amount of time and put some bleeds on them. So once you've done those 2 things, you swap into Fire Attunement, and they're all ready for a bashing. Either if you think they're gonna dodge, or if they're like have blocks up, you don't want to use your high value Gale yet. You instead Flame Uprising to maybe gap close a little bit more, put down a big fire field. Then you're gonna want to use your Gale when you don't think they're gonna be able to block it or evade it. That means they're knocked down for 3 seconds, hopefully in your fire field, and you use Pyro Vortex on them to do 8 stacks of burning really quickly. That's a large damage skill. Maybe you want to lay down your Swirling Winds if you need some protection, but it doesn't really matter because then you could go back into Earth Attunement and you're back protected. Wonderful. So those are the 2 valuable rotations for this build. Basically, what you do with this build is you stick in Earth Fire Attunement, lay down a ton of damage until you don't have enough damage anymore, and go Water, Fire, Earth as 1 rotation to avoid some damage and heal yourself, or you go Lightning, Fire, Earth to do more damage, pressure people, interrupt people, and then get back to your Earth. So those are the 2 special rotations, and then obviously you saw from the skills that were available when you swapped attunements that there's some utility in this build too. So like, if someone's trying to stomp your friend, swap to Lightning. Then you could lock them down a little bit. And then since you're swapped to Lightning from this thing, you have Earth. You could press F on the body, start rezzing them, and put down Obsidian Flesh so they can't stop you from rezzing them. Hopefully you get it off and they're back up and you're happy again. But it might not happen. So if that doesn't work for some reason, go Fire. Make sure that they pay for trying to stomp your friend by cleaving on your own dead body, and go back to Earth and do the same thing. If they have down bodies, you could try to stomp them by swapping to any element essentially. I would actually swap to double Earth in a lot of cases, because then you could Obsidian Flesh to stomp someone. And if that doesn't work and they're starting to attack you, and this goes with the rezzing as well, then you're still protected with your Earth Attunement with your Stoneheart. Yeah, but also you probably want to cleave the bodies when you have their, if one of them is down and they're trying to res. So, lightning is a good cleave. Lightning fire is a good cleave for the pyro vortex. You could lay the flame wall down on top of them. Flame uprising is a good cleave. Signet of fire is a good cleave. Just standing next to them with primordial stance and lava skin is a good cleave. You could easily kill people if they're just trying to flat out res somebody. And I guess that is basically it. Hopefully this was enough description for you guys. It probably wasn't, but this is basically what I've been doing in 2v2s, and I've been having a lot of fun with it. And as you can see, it's not too complicated, so that's why I'm not doing so badly with it. The end.